This is the talk of the town, KIEV. It's 3:30.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to change gears here right now. We're going to talk about workman's compensation. We're going to talk about Social Security, and we're going to be talking with an attorney, Mr. Donald R. von Mizener. He is an attorney in Los Angeles here. Let me bring him in right now. Mr. von Mizener, nice to talk to you.
I hope so.
We were laughing before we went on the air, Van and Von, and now I've got a block on that, and it's von Mizener, Donald R. von Mizener.
Yes.
And your son Bo is there in the office there, and you deal in some interesting things in the law. We're talking about Social Security. We're talking about workman's comp. Let's start the program by starting at the beginning. Just what do you plan to discuss here on the program today?
Well, partly Social Security, partly immigration, partly workers' comp primarily. And the reason we got onto that was because the new act, the state of California has enacted a completely different law that goes into effect on January 1st, 1990, which is going to change things a great deal. It's going to pretty well eliminate a lot of compensation claims. If they're filed after January 1st, 1990, they run into just an enormous number of difficulties consisting of roadblocks that were designed originally, and the whole purpose, of course, was to make it easier, but in turn it, in fact, is going to be something of a bureaucratic nightmare, unfortunately.
In other words, will this be good or will this be bad for you attorneys?
Well, if you're on the defense, it will probably be very good. If you're representing the injured workman, it'll probably be very bad because it's going to take longer to get things through, at least for the first year or two while they're trying to unsnarl the machinery. And it's going to make it a good deal more difficult for the bulk of people because the new machinery rather eliminates a large percentage of the smaller cases. The person who has a case whose value is $4,000 or $5,000 will find it pretty difficult to get through, and to establish that, I think the major injury will probably go through about the same as ever.
Mm-hmm. But the little ones will be a little more difficult to substantiate?
Well, it's a long...
Is that the word?
To describe, but essentially, at the present time, man's injured, he goes off, he sees a doctor who is his attorney, or will pick somebody that he knows will give him a quick report and get it out. That's submitted to the insurance company and to a comp board. The carrier, in many cases, will choose, in the smaller cases, to settle immediately because it saves them going out and getting additional medicals. It saves them additional legal expense. And for the smaller case, that's a great way to get rid of it fast. The man's got his money early, or the woman has. And those will pretty much go by the boards because there's no way, under the new act, all these must go through a sort of a sifting process.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're talking about workman's compensation, and that's the state side of things, right?
That's right.
And on the other side is the Social Security, which is the federal side, right?
That's right.
Now, the change, you say, is only in the state situation. Now, why would one case be state and another one be federal?
Well, one, of course, the state is interested only in the injury that was caused by the job. Now, that's sometimes that word gets into a lot of strange interpretations. Cause, for instance, I may be out there and sure I'm a football coach, and I say, "Here, Charlie, I'll show you how to run that pass pattern," and I drop dead with a heart attack.
Yes.
Well, that's an injury on the job.
Sure it is.
The people often don't realize, if you get in a position of, almost all of us, if you're in there and suddenly you go off the air and you start sweating, you may have a heart attack. If you do that enough times, you probably go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
yeah?
using a more medical term, you develop a something great neurosis or psychosis or some such thing. Anyway, there are plenty of things. That's the state end. The federal is, you're just sitting there and watching your arteries coagulate and harden. And you see, you can have any kind of disability as long as the disability prevents you from becoming gainfully employed. then you qualify for Social Security at any age. You could be 16 years old.
Well, actually, what you said before was also true either way. If you had the heart attack and it was on the job, it becomes workers' comp. If you have a heart attack anywhere else that still keeps you from being able to work anywhere, then you're talking Social Security.
That's the way, huh?
Well, it's also both. If you have a heart attack on the job, then you are qualified for state funds, and you also qualify for federal Social Security.
Well, you know, it's a fascinating thing. So many of us, you know, working in alleged easy jobs where all we have to do is talk, don't realize what a lot of people have to go through who work in foundries, who work in heavy industry, that are pretty well burned out by the time they're 65, and they've got a lot of aches and a lot of pains and a lot of hurt. And you must come in contact, I imagine, mostly with people of this sort, don't you?
Sure, but they don't have to be 65. You'll find some of the people at 45 that look very old. I mean, they're burned out.
Yeah.
You remember for many years they've talked about the short hoe. You take agriculture, if you're working with that short hoe and you're bent over and you start that when you're 16, 17, 18 years of age or less, by the time you're 45, your back is ruined.
Yeah.
There are other jobs. Get on a drop hammer, for instance. Within 15 years, you're stone cold deaf.
No, I
Not
imagine.
just saying, hey, you can't even hear it when they blow a steam whistle off in your ear.
Yeah. Now, do these people know that? Do you think everybody that actually is suffering some disability is aware of it?
Practically none.
Yeah, I was going to say almost none of them.
Almost none of them.
Yeah, I have been to a lot of these different meetings. I've been invited over to unions to speak to their people. And I remember one time with pile drivers, and you're talking... here's a group of about 200 men out there, and as I'm talking to them, and I'm using a microphone that's making it louder, still you've got about half the audience there leaning forward, cupping their ears to hear what you're saying, and none of them have any idea, or at least virtually none of them have any idea that that's compensable, that they have money coming to them for their loss of hearing.
Now, can they get these funds while they're still working?
Sure.
They can.
Sure, because the disability, it's like saying, well, if I had one of my hands knocked off, can I recover if I go back to work? Of course. It's a matter you are now suffering a partial permanent disability. It isn't total, but you've certainly suffered quite a bit. And the man in the same situation. As a drop hammer operator, he's still able to run that drop hammer, deaf or not. But suppose his company closes. Where does he go? If he can't find work within that industry, he becomes virtually unemployable, because then he has to go around looking for a job where he can't hear anybody.
That's right. And he can't become a ballet dancer very well.
Not too often.
Yeah. All right, we're talking with Donald R. von Mizener. He is an attorney at law, and he practices at 2067 South Atlantic Boulevard in Los Angeles. If you would like to call his office on a day other than today, he tells me that his office force is off because of the holiday, but you might jot his number down. It's area code 213-264-1422. That's area code 213-264-1422. Now, Mr. von Mizener, don't most employers automatically provide workers' compensation benefits?
Well, they're all required by state law, including myself. We have to, all employers must have workers' compensation, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get any benefits for two reasons. First of all, the more you report claims, obviously the premium will go up if your company has a high number of claims. So employers tend not to turn them in if they are not actually stuck with it in a situation where they have to. If you send a person out for medical care, it's going to be reported anyway.
Especially when you're talking like these big factories and such, where they're trying to keep injuries down to a minimum, and of course a lot of minor injuries occur almost every day, and they try to discourage the employee in most cases from filing or from looking into benefits for a minor injury.
Because that runs up the cost of their insurance, I imagine.
Sure, and also the employee, if he has, say, I've hurt my back, I don't want to report that unless I think, well, it'll get better. I'll probably make it if I go in there and I make a big thing out of it. Maybe they'll be looking for somebody else. They'll find a way to lay me off. This is why we get an enormous number from retirees, people from retirees, and also from plant closures. Or some company closed down. Now the man isn't worried about losing his job. He's already lost it. So he comes in and says, "Yeah, I knocked the devil out of my back 2 years ago, but I didn't do anything," and so forth. Same thing with their hearing and their lungs, like you mentioned, foundry workers.
Yeah. Now, what is the law, Mr. von Mizener, as far as how far back you can go?
Well, I could give you a long legal lecture on that because it depends on so many factors. If you had an injury that was reported and it was a type of injury that probably would result in some disability, and you were never told that you had a right to go in and file on that thing, they didn't send you a formal notice in the mail, then the time never starts to run. If you had, say, a hearing loss, and no doctor told you you've lost your hearing due to the noise, then the statute doesn't start to run. Ordinarily, if I, say, crushed my finger, I've got 5 years. Within which to file on that.
Now, when people come to your firm, to von Mizener and von Mizener, the professional law corporation, do they pay for it? Who pays? How do you work out the cost of going through this legal procedure?
Well, they never put out a dime. Of course, we do get paid. What happens is that at the end of the case, if we win the case, and I'd say, of course, we're going to win probably 98%. We actually will win any case unless we're lied to. If the client doesn't lie to us, we're going to win the case because we won't take in a case that doesn't have disability, and the only time you can possibly lose those cases is due to fraud. What we're really doing is trying to get the maximum amount of money and benefits for the person. So at the end, the judge sets a fee of 10 to 12% of whatever amount of permanent disability we've secured for the client.
And then that is paid out of the claim.
That's right.
But that amount of money is set by the court, though, huh?
Right.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know it worked that way. Now, how would someone go about filing a claim for workman's comp?
Well, they can, of course, file for themselves if they want to. They go down to a workers' comp board run by the state of California, and they could do it, and they will be about as successful as taking out their own appendix in most cases. Or they can go see an attorney. Preferably, if I were an individual, I'd find somebody that specialized in workers' compensation, the same as I'd go to a cardiologist if my heart hurt. I'd get in trouble.
Now, what are we talking about as far as money on a situation like this? Say you win a workman's comp case. Do you get a lump sum, or do they pay you over a period of time, or how does that work?
Both. If you choose to take an award, it will be paid out by the week at the rate of $140. Under the old act, it'd be $140 a week. Now the thing is, under the new act, it's changed to higher amounts. But usually, probably 70, 80, 90% of the cases, you settle that for a lump sum because rather than wait and get it dribbled, the insurance company would rather get it over with and not pay you by the week. It takes up their money, their time, their clerk's time in issuing checks each week. So the end result usually is that you will settle a case, say, $15,000 instead of saying I want to get this amount of money running over a period of a year and a half or something like that. It'll come in one lump sum.
That's probably better for the person too. Now, if somebody is listening this afternoon and they'd like to get in touch with you on Monday morning, would you take phone calls, or how do you feel about this?
Oh, well, we have something like 2,400 cases going now, so a few more.
Have you really?
Oh, yeah.
2,400 cases going now?
Sure.
That is amazing. That is something.
Firestone and Goodyear closed, for instance. We had in excess of 5,000 at one time. We almost went crazy.
That is something. Now, you're at 2067 South Atlantic. Near what city is that? You're in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. It's actually City of Commerce. But City of Commerce is so tiny that everything that's called Los Angeles, the mail comes to it rather than being addressed to Commerce.
All right. Now, let me give out your telephone number, and if anyone would like to call the law offices of von Mizener and von Mizener, and let me spell that, Bonmizener, von Mizener. And their telephone number is 213-264-1422. That's 213-264-1422. Well, Don, it's been nice talking to you, and you too, Bo.
Thank you.
And I think that we've answered some questions, and the next time around we'll move into some other things. But it's been, I think, fascinating talking to you, and we wish you a lot of success with your program.
I'll send you my bill in the morning.
Fair enough. That's the old lawyer's term right there. His telephone number is 213-264-1422, Von Mizener and Von Mizener. This program furnished by Von Mizener.
I'm Joe Blasco, Hollywood makeup artist.